So I think my own view is that where we really need to be careful is on the development of autonomy and how we think about that. Because it's actually the case that relatively simple and unintelligent things that have runaway autonomy and just spread themselves, or it's like we have a word for that. It's a virus, right? It's can be simple computer code that is not particularly intelligent, but just spreads itself and does a lot of harm, biologically or computer. And I just think that these are somewhat separable things. And a lot of what I think we need to develop when people talk about safety and responsibility is really the governance on the autonomy that can be given to systems. And to me, if I were, a policymaker or thinking about this, I would really want to think about that distinction between these, where I think building intelligent systems can create a huge advance in terms of people's quality of life and productivity growth in the economy. But it's the autonomy part of this that I think we really need to make progress on how to govern these things responsibly before we build the capacity for them to make a lot of decisions on their own, or give them goals or things like that. And I think that that's a research problem, but I do think that to some degree these are somewhat separable things.
I love the distinction between intelligence and autonomy and the metaphor with the neocortex. Let me ask about power. So building superintelligent systems, even if it's not in the near term, I think Meta is one of the few companies, if not the main company, that will develop the superintelligent system. And you are a man who's at the head of this company. Building AGI might make you the most powerful man in the world. Do you worry that power will corrupt you?
What a question. Look, I think realistically, this gets back to the open source things that we talked about before, which is I don't think that the world will be best served by any small number of organizations having this without it being something that is more broadly available. And I think if you look through history, it's when there are these sort of like unipolar advances and things that, and like power imbalances, that they're due into being kind of weird situations. So this is one of the reasons why I think open source is generally the right approach. And I think it's a categorically different question today when we're not close to superintelligence. I think that there's a good chance that even once we get closer to superintelligence, open sourcing remains the right approach, even though I think at that point it's a somewhat different debate. But I think part of that is that is, I think one of the best ways to ensure that the system is as secure and safe as possible, because it's not just about a lot of people having access to it. It's the scrutiny that kind of comes with with building an open source system. I think that this is a pretty widely accepted thing about open source, is that you have the code out there, so anyone can see the vulnerabilities. Anyone can kind of mess with it in different ways. People can spin off their own projects and experiment in a ton of different ways. And the net result of all of that is that the systems just get hardened and get to be a lot safer and more secure. So I think that there's a chance that ends up being the way that this goes too, a pretty good chance, and that having this be open both leads to a healthier development of the technology and also leads to a more balanced distribution